This is Algebra 1, Lesson 98. It's due Monday, the 11th, this coming Monday. This is solved by factoring, which I actually already showed you a little bit on Lesson 96. So I'm just going to review what I showed you there, do a little bit more. So if we've got x minus 3, x minus 8 equals 0, this is already factored. So when it's already factored, and again, this is what I said on Lesson 96, when you've got it factored, just look at what would make each parenthesis 0. So what would make x minus 3 0? 3. What would make x minus 8 0? 8. So x can be 3 and 8. And that's the way you do it. That's the way you do it every time. Sometimes they'll have it factored for you. Sometimes you need to factor it. But this one was factored for you. Let's see, x minus 4 times x plus 5 equals 0. So again, what will make x minus 4 0? A 4. And what will make x plus 5 0? A negative 5. Or think about it this way. You're doing inverse operations, okay? So if you're subtracting 4, you need to add 4. If you're adding 5, you need to subtract 5. So you're doing inverse operations on these. Let's try one more like that that's been factored so you can see that. Let's see, x minus 3 times x plus 7 equals 0. So then positive 3, negative 7. Again, inverse operations. It's a subtracting 3. I need a plus 3 to make it 0. It's an addition 7 or adding 7. I need a minus 7 to make it equal 0. Then you'll have ones, which again, like I said, I showed you a few on lesson 96. On 96, you'll have some where you have to factor it. So we need the factors of negative 18 that give positive 3. So factors of negative 18 that give positive 3, that would be x plus 6, x minus 3. Y'all need to be very careful about your signs because some of you are still missing your signs. So negative 18, I need a positive 6 and a negative 3 to get negative 18. And then this needs to be positive 6 so I can get a positive 3. Now there's the factoring. Now you need to finish and solve because your instructions are going to be solved by factoring. It'll have an equal sign. If it has an equal sign, that means you need to solve. So you go with one more step where x plus 6 would give you a negative 6 and x minus 3 would give you a positive 3 to get those zeros. Okay? Then you could have something like 2x squared plus 13x plus 15 equals 0. So this is that advanced factoring that we've done a lot. You do the 2 times the 15, and you get 30, positive 30. And then you want the factors of 30 that give you 13, which would be 10 and 3. So then 2x squared plus 10x plus 3x plus 15. Take a 2x out, you get x plus 5. Take a 3 out, you get x plus 5. So that would be 2x plus 3, x plus 5. Now again, we're going to do inverse operations. So I'm going to start with the x plus 5 because the only inverse operation here you need to do is a minus 5 because you're adding 5, so you need to subtract 5. Here we've got 2 inverse operations to do because I've got 2 numbers. Here that's a 1, so that doesn't matter. I really just have one number I have to deal with. Here I've got 2 numbers. So I do the inverse operation here, which is a negative 3, and then I divide by 2 because division is the inverse operation of multiplication. So, and I'm giving you a shortcut on this. Usually we take both of these, we set them equal to 0 and solve, but I want you to be able to do these really fast. So I don't want you to show any work like that. Just remember it's inverse operation, and we would divide by 2 here because that's the inverse operation. So let's just practice on some more, mainly just to remember our factoring things. So let's see, 5x squared minus 20x equals 10x minus 45. So on this one, it doesn't equal 0, and we need it to equal 0. So if I subtract 10x, and I'm going to add 45, and we are going to do this at the same time because we've got a whole lot of other stuff to do with it. So that'll leave that side equal to 0, and I would have 5x squared minus 30x plus 45. Now the first thing I notice is I can take a 5 out of everything. So what you're going to do, so we don't have to deal with that 5, so we don't have to write it down so it doesn't have to follow us along. See how I'm dividing the 0 by 5 as well? That's what we want to do. If we do that, then we don't have to worry about it. It can go away, and it can just go away, and we don't have to worry about it. But we do need to take it out because it makes the factoring easier, because now This is just x minus 3 times x minus 3, or x minus 3 squared, which means it was a perfect square trinomial. So I only have one x here. It's 3, which means I only have one 0, which means that's an x-intercept. If I were to graph this, it would touch the x-axis at 3, okay? So that's another type of factoring you're going to see. Then you will also see something like 45x squared equals 27x. Again, we need these to equal 0 first. So 45x squared minus 27x, because what I did is I subtracted 27x from both sides, moved it over. Then I'm going to take something, if I can take something out of this, which I can, 9x. That'll leave 5x minus 3. And then we do inverse operations, except right here there's not an inverse operation. And I'm multiplying by x. So the only thing that can make that x right there 0 is 0 itself. And then inverse operation, positive 3, dividing by 5. Okay, be careful with this. Don't get these messed up. Don't put 5 over 3, because 5 is the one's being multiplied, so you got to divide by the 5. You do the inverse operation of the subtraction and get the addition, and then you divide by 5. Then let's see, you can have something like, this is actually the difference of two squares. So you could factor it as a difference of two squares, 5x minus 4, 5x plus 4. That'd be 4 over 5, because again, inverse operation of negative 4 is a positive 4, and then I'm dividing by 5. Inverse operation of positive 4 is negative 4, and I'm dividing by 5. So x equals 4 over 5, x equals negative 4 over 5. Okay, now so let me go through and just show you, like I said, you just need to see a lot of stuff. So let's see, you could see x squared plus 2x equals 8. So I'm going to take the 8, move it over, so that means I'm subtracting 8 from both sides. So x squared plus 2x minus 8 equals 0. So I need the factors of negative 8 that give me positive 2, so they've got to be different signs. So one's a positive, one's a negative, because I've got to multiply to be negative 8. And then I need the factors of negative 8 that give me positive 2, which would be positive 4, negative 2. So positive 4, inverse operation is a negative 4, negative 2, inverse operation is a positive 2. So x equals negative 4, positive 2. Let's see, just trying to show you all kinds of different examples of what you can see. X squared plus 6 equals negative 5x. So again, we need these to equal 0. So we can factor it and make sure you put them in standard form. So that means the x squared needs to be first, then the x term, then the constant. We need the factors of 6 that give 5, which are not 1 and 6 here, 2 and 3. 2 times 3 is 6, 2 plus 3 is 5. Inverse operations, negative 2, negative 3, x equals negative 2, negative 3. 3x squared equals 4x plus 7. 3x squared equals 4x plus 7. So on this, we want it to equal 0, but we don't want to move the x squared, because if we move the x squared, it would be a negative x squared, and that just makes our job harder, and we don't want our job to be harder. So we're going to move the 4x and the 7 at the same time and have 3x squared minus 4x minus 7 equals 0. Now we do that advanced factoring like I've already shown you. I've already shown you one of them. So that's a negative 21. So we want the factors of negative 21 that give negative 4, which are actually staring us in the face, negative 7 and 3. Because we know 3 times negative 7 is negative 21. I just did it. Well, negative 7 plus 3 is negative 4. So we want to use negative 7 and positive 3. So 3x squared plus 3x minus 7x minus 7. Take a 3x out. We get x plus 1. Take a negative 7 out. We get x plus 1. So 3x minus 7, x plus 1. So again, inverse operations, x plus 1, negative 1. Inverse operations, negative 7 is a positive 7, and we divide by 3. So x equals 7 over 3 and negative 1. Okay, let's see. 7x squared minus 6 equals 19x. 7x squared minus 6 equals 19x. So again, going to move that 19x over because we need it to equal 0 so we can solve. Whenever there's an equal sign, that means you're wanting to solve. That means you not only factor, because it'll usually say solve by factoring, or it could say find the roots. If it says find the roots, find the zeros, this is what you're doing, okay? You're solving. You're finding the solutions, you're finding the x-intercepts. That's not roofs, that's roots, okay? Roots, zeros, solutions, solving, it's all the same thing. This is what you do, okay? So on this one, I can't take 7 out of anything, so I multiply 7 times negative 6 and get negative 42. I want the factors of negative 42 that give me negative 19, which would be negative 21, positive 2. So 7x squared minus 21x plus 2x minus 6. So 7x, x minus 3. Take a 2 out, you get x minus 3. So then 7x plus 2, x minus 3. Inverse operations, it's a minus 3, I need a plus 3. It's a plus 2, I need a minus 2. I'm multiplying by 7, I need to divide by 7. Inverse operations. Okay, let's see on this one. 20 minus 2x squared equals 70 minus 20x. 20 minus 2x squared equals 70 minus 20x. So I don't want that. Okay, here's what we're going to do on this. We got a lot of different choices, but I want to show you this right quick. Okay, so I've got minus 70 and I've got plus 20x because I'm going to get this side to equal 0. So my 70's cancel, my 20x's cancel. I get negative 2x squared plus 20x minus 50. And I just said before, I don't want the x squared negative. Makes it icky, makes it harder to work. Don't want to make my job harder. So what we can do here is divide everything by a negative 2. That'll change the signs. It'll take that negative away on the first term, which is what we want it to do. And then we can factor it from there. So I wanted to show you this one in case you do have one that is a negative and you don't have anything to move. Or you do have a negative x squared, divide everything by a negative. Get rid of it. It'll make your job easier. So this is x minus 5 all squared because this is a difference of, this is a perfect square trinomial because that's x, that's 5, 5x. If I multiply by 2 is 10x, so I'm good. So my x here is 5. My x, my root, my solution, my x-intercept, the 0, that's 5. So lots of different ways it can, lots of different things it can be called. So let's see, 6x squared minus 12 equals negative 21x. I know I'm doing a lot of these, but I just want to show you lots of different examples of what you might see, okay? So I'm going to add 21x, and I get 6x squared plus 21x minus 12 equals 0. And I do notice on this that I can take a 3 out. I can't take a 6, but I can take a 3 out of them all. So at least what that would do, and notice I divide the 0 by 3 as well so I can get rid of it. Because if I just take it out of these, then I've got to leave it on the outside like we would do when we just factor, okay? So 2x squared plus 7x minus 4 equals 0. That's a little easier to factor. So 2 and negative 4 is negative 8. Factors of negative 8 that give positive 7 are positive 8, negative 1, because they multiply to be negative 8. They're going to add to be positive 7. So 2x squared plus 8x minus 1x minus 4. Take a 2x out, you get x plus 4. Take a negative 1 out, you get x plus 4. So then 2x minus 1, x plus 4 is the factoring. That's not where we stop, though, because we've got an equal sign. We want to solve it. So inverse operations. Positive 1 over 2, inverse operations, negative 4. So that's the 2 it can be. Okay, then you're going to have some rectangle problems. Rectangular yard, rectangular flower bed. Okay, so we've got a rectangle. And on this rectangle, the area is 51. So my area is 51. The length is 14 yards more than the width. So here's my width. The length is 14 more yards than the width. So my length is W plus 14. Sorry guys, my W is just not happy right now. Okay, so W plus 14. And we want to find the width. We want to find the width and the length. So remember, area of a rectangle is length times width. So we're going to take the length, multiply by the width, and set it equal to the area, which is 51. So we're going to do distributive property. I'm going to distribute. W times W is W squared. W times 14 is 14W equals 51. So we want to move the 51 over. So W squared plus 14W minus 51 equals 0. I need the factors of negative 51 that give me 14, which are actually 17 and negative 3. 51 is divisible by 3 because you can add the 5 and the 1 and get 6. That's divisible by 3, so the whole number is. So this factors into W plus 17, W minus 3, because we don't have to do the long factoring because I don't have anything in front of the W squared. So my options are negative 17 and 3. These are my options for the width. Now we have to think about this. Which one makes sense? I can't have a negative 17 on the width of a rectangle. So negative 17 doesn't work for us here. So my width is 3 and my length is 17. And it is in, let's see, yards. So make sure you label them. And make sure you put both. They ask for length and width, so make sure you put both. Okay, so I want to do another one of those. Okay, so we've got a rectangular pool now. Again, it's just any kind of rectangle. And it has an area of 360 feet squared. The length is 6 more than 3 times the width. So here's my width. The length is 6 more than 3 times the width. So that's how that sets up. Again, area is length times width. So I would put 6 plus 3W times W and set it equal to 360. So that would be 3W squared plus 18W. Sorry, not 18W. W times 3W is 3W squared. W times 6 is 6W. Minus, sorry, no. I'm just getting ahead of myself. Sorry, guys. Okay, equals 360. Now, subtract 360 from both sides. So 3W squared plus 6W minus 360 equals 0. Now I can take a 3 out of everything. So W squared plus 2W minus 120 equals 0. I need the factors of negative 120 that give me 2, which would be a positive 10. It would not. It would be a positive 12 and a negative 10, because 12 times negative 10 is negative 120, and 12 minus 10 is 2. So my options are negative 12 and 10. The only one that makes sense is the 10. So that means my width is 10. And if my width is 10 feet, then I just plug it in here. 6 plus 3 times 10 would give me 36 feet. Or you could have taken your area and divided it by 10, and that would give you your length as well. Guys, that just doesn't look like a 36. Okay, so that is lesson 98. So let me make the assignment and talk about a few of them. Okay, so you're going to do the warm-up, which is on page 655. Let me check that. Yes, warm-up on page 655. You're going to do practice A through G. Then you're going to do 1 through 3, 5, 6, 9, and 10. You're also going to do 13, 14, 17, 24, 25, 28, and 30. And I'm going to go through here and talk about some like I usually do. And just make sure, again, some of you are not finishing the ones I talk about. You're just leaving them on your notes, or you're just writing down what I do on the notes, but you need to finish them. So yeah, make sure that you finish what I talk about. So let's see, anything on the warm-up? No. I will tell you this, 4 is a perfect square trinomial. 5, you've got 12x squared minus 27. If you'll take a 3 out of both of those, you get 4x squared minus 9, and that's the difference of two squares. But 4 is a perfect square trinomial. This is a difference of two squares, so I'll just go ahead and finish it for you. That's how it factors. That's how that one factors on number 5. On the warm-up, guys, these are on the warm-up. This is warm-up number 4 and warm-up number 5. Okay, then for the lesson, number 3 is the difference of two squares. It's got negative 121 plus 9x squared. So if you rewrote it as 9x squared minus 121, I've shown you here how the difference of two squares factors. So just do the same thing on this. Take the square root, take the square root. You need one parentheses with a plus, one parentheses with a minus. So that's number 3. Number 5, just add them. Just combine like terms on number 5. That's all you need to do. Number 6, you're going to do y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. You want it to go through the point 1, comma 2. And then you're asked for it to be perpendicular to that line that's there. Well, the slope of the line that's there is negative 3/4. So you want to use 4/3. So for your m right here, you're going to put 4/3. Okay? So you're going to have y minus 2 equals 4/3 times x minus 1. And you're going to finish it from there. Okay? But that's perpendicular. Negative 3/4, 4/3, opposite reciprocals, those are perpendicular. Okay, so that was 1 through 3, and then 5 and 6. Number 9, the only thing I want to caution you on is make sure that the squared goes to everything. Like make sure you square the 5, you square the x, you square the y, you square the z. Make sure you square the 3 here. That you square x to the negative first, which would be x to the negative second, and that you square y. You can finish it from there. Oh, and then on number 10, we've talked about this before. They bring it up in lesson 97, which we're not doing, but we've talked about it before. How to tell if something's a solution. Just plug in. Plug in. Here's your x, here's your y. Make sure this side is less than this one. Plug in correctly, and then if it is true, if this side is less than, then it's yes. If this side isn't less than, then it's no. But we've talked about that before, so that's the way you do number 10. Then you're skipping to number 13, which is just doing inverse operations. It's the stuff we did today. Then on number 14, I want to set it up for you, and then you finish it from there. So on 14, we've got a girl is 27 years younger than her mother, and her mother is M. So we've got a girl that's 27 years younger than her mother, so M minus 27. The product of their ages, so G times M, is 324. So we can substitute in. We can take M minus 27 and put it right there where the G is. So M minus 27 times M equals 324. Now you should be able to finish it from there. Look at the notes. I did 2 of these on the notes. They're the rectangle problems. You're doing the same thing that we did on the notes. That's the way it sets up. And then you finish it. So make sure you finish number 14. Then number 17 is real easy. You're just changing the signs. Number 24. Okay, on number 24, they give you h equals negative 16t squared plus vt plus s. And a ball is dropped from 100 feet, so that means your s is 100. And if it's dropped, your initial velocity is 0, which they give you in the hint. And then you want to know height after t seconds, height after 2 seconds. So t is 2. So plug in. I've given you s. They tell you the initial height is 100, so that's for s. The initial velocity is 0 because it was dropped, so there wasn't any power behind it. It was just dropped, so that's why the initial velocity is 0. And your t is 2 because you want the height after 2 seconds. So here this is, plug in the 2 and go from there. And that's your answer. There's nothing to go from there. 25 is just, it is this stuff. It's less than 98. You factor it and then you find the right solutions. Then 28. Okay, let me show you 28. 28, I'm pretty sure it's another, yeah. See, we've got a rectangular garden on 28. The area is 36. The width of the garden is 9 feet less than the length. So the width of the garden, so we've got length. The width is 9 feet less than the length. So that's 9 feet less than the length. What are the dimensions of the garden? So this is exactly what we did in the notes, because area is length times width. So you can finish that up on 28 to find the dimensions. And then on 30, you just need to FOIL. There was a mistake that was made, I think, or maybe there wasn't a mistake that was made. So FOIL it and show the correct one. You've got to FOIL the 4x minus 6 and the 8x plus 7. They give you those two. You just need to FOIL it. Okay, so again, that is lesson 98, due Monday the 11th.